Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video, we're going to be covering 9 more advanced tips in the first Berserker Khazan. These are going to be really helpful to help you battle and get stronger. First things first, we're going to talk about, I've been loving the spear. Full Moon for the spear, the skill is amazing. It's a wide sweep, and it's fantastic for mobs. If you have mobs that are going to be running at you, and you charge this, you could do massive damage, typically stun them as well, and then follow up with critical hits and whatnot, and absolutely destroy the mobs you're facing. The wide sweep, as long as you time it right, is excellent, and Full Moon is definitely something you're going to want to grab on the skill tree. At number 8, let them break themselves. Some enemies absolutely frenzy on you, and in that case, you're going to want to just guard and or parry them or do whatever you can to allow them to break themselves. And in some instances, this is a side boss here, they can absolutely break themselves simply by guarding at the right time. Getting some perfect guards will allow you to build up their posture meter, and instead of really concentrating on attacking too much, just a little bit, you can mostly get them to break themselves. It's hugely helpful to use it that way when they attack like crazy. Just make sure you guard as best you can, and we're on to number 7. Check everything. This level really confused me, and I'm going to show something as an example of if you're a little bit lost, always check every corner and area, because in a lot of these games and Souls-like games, there's a lot of hidden stuff, and sometimes it's the most least likely path that will lead you to where you need to go. In the case of this level specifically, and this is a late level in the game, we're going to go over the vampire boss fight later in this video, by the way, so there's some spoilers here for those that are having difficulty with that boss fight. It is a very difficult boss fight. Anyways, back to this. This looked like this led nowhere, and I was looking for a key for the door to move towards the boss fight in this area, and it turns out there's a drop down here. You go around, and then eventually we're going to find a chest with the key. You really have to look through these levels to find like extra things, especially the treasure chest and whatnot. Basically, if you're looking for armor and stuff like that, it's always good to check everything in these levels. They are simpler than a lot of the other Souls-like games that I've played in terms of the level design. It is fairly straightforward, but there's going to be some areas like this one where I really had to look around to find the key, and honestly, that ledge was probably the last place I looked. I was looking everywhere to find it, and it turned out it ended up being an area that, honestly, I thought I would just fall off a cliff, and it turns out I could loop around, find the treasure chest, find the key, and then move on with the level and head towards the boss fight. This is definitely one of those tips that you should take for any Souls-like game. Check every area of the map, and a lot of stuff in certain instances is designed like puzzles in a way. And I want to show number 6, and that is backstabs and following up after your backstabs as well. I talked about backstabs in my first video, but they're phenomenal in this game. Typically, you're going to get more damage from the backside, and on top of that, the boss is going to have to turn back around to you, and a lot of times they don't attack right away, so you can follow up from behind fairly often once you get in that backstab. In the instance of this boss, this mini boss, he's typically kind of tough to break. Obviously, he's pretty much a rock boss here. He's got a high stamina bar. But once you break him, you're going to notice that we're going to get massive damage from the critical attack we get on the back. I believe it's called the brutal attack in this game. And then following up and continuing to attack him in the back for even more damage. And you could do this with most of the bosses in the game, most of the side bosses, etc. You could take advantage of critically breaking them in the back and then following up consistently with attacking them as they attempt to turn around and or basically try to reposition themselves back to you. Gives you more time, and in certain instances, if you need to heal too, it's also a great window for healing as well. If you need to heal, you'll have time to do that. We're going to get some attacks in there. Critical hit, massive damage to the back in this case, and then another charged attack afterwards for some damage, and a little bit of a follow-up there. Something I use all the time in this game now. That backstab ability is so helpful. It really is one of the best tips I can possibly give you in this game, because there's so much damage you could do before, then get in your brutal attack or whatever, then go, because you're behind them already, continue to attack them from behind for even more damage, because there's like a multiplier for most of the bosses from the backside. And then you're going to, even in some instances, I'll show you in the vampire fight, you can actually start to chew at their next posture bar afterwards. I'll show you how to do that for certain bosses as well later in this video. So it really is the best way to go about most of these fights. From the front, if you're able to break them, it's just not as good. You don't get as much damage, and typically they reposition themselves, and then they'll attack you literally again right in front of your face before you have any chance to follow up. They almost never do that if you stay behind them and you get the breaks there too. This mini boss, by the way, was very tough. It was a little bit difficult for sure. Initially, I thought I had to fight this boss to get the key in this level, and then found it, and I ended up using the other clip to show you to check everything. And yeah, I didn't regret taking this boss on because I got a couple cool items and whatnot, but ultimately he was pretty tough. There's the final critical break from behind, brutal attack, whatever you want to call it. For some reason, I got stuck on that step. We're going to grab the item and move on. And number 5, craft armor sets and check your armor as well. I like the Deep Shadow set for the spear. I recently did a spear guide. I'll leave that in the description below. I think it's a really cool set. I think you can get it relatively early too. But always be sure to check your armor too. If it's a higher level, it doesn't necessarily mean it's better. It's not always better just because it's a higher level. We're going to show here for our armor, we have the level 97 Deep Shadow Helm with 433. And the important thing here is this Deep Shadow Helm will actually, it's not going to beat the next couple, but it's going to beat several that are higher levels than it that are purple. So make sure you compare your armor sets. You look around to see what's best. And also make sure that if you have a full set and you're not ready to craft a new set, that you're not losing those bonuses just for a little extra defense. Because in a lot of cases, it's not worth it. So always compare your armor, see what you have, kind of balance it out. Don't obsess over it, but try to go with what you think is best, and keep in mind the full sets are helpful. And number 4, we have the X and square dodge light attack thing. This is really helpful for breaking bosses, and one of my favorite moves in the entire game. In the case of the Princess Elena, or Elena, however you say her name, I'm not really good with pronunciations. I haven't been paying attention to the scenes much in this game. I'm just really enjoying the boss fights. Anyway, in the case of her fight for the second phase, you can use the X square combo a lot to break her and kind of get out of her whole bubble thing, just like you can in the other summoner fight. X and square on PlayStation. On Xbox, it should be, I guess, A and X. And that's going to be your dodge, light attack, dodge, light attack, dodge, light attack. I've talked about this before, but it is really an excellent combination that does a lot of posture damage. If you use the vitality spears, which are really helpful, you can keep your stamina up and you can kind of keep spamming that ability. And that's going to allow you to break bosses pretty fast that way. It's hugely helpful. And for me, it's really carried me in a lot of instances where the bosses didn't have a lot of posture left and they were trying to get away, and then I just kind of spammed them with X and square. You can see, by the way, the spear ability, that blocking ability, the spin, that's the skill all the way to the right I talked about in my last tip video. That's an amazing skill. If you have a hard time blocking any specific attacks, you can use that, and as long as it's a blockable attack, it'll work, and it's going to help you a ton. In the instance there when she did those charge attacks, which are very difficult typically to dodge or block or even perfect parry, they're very hard to time. You could just use that spin move twice if you have enough of your spirits available, and make sure you have enough, and if you do, you can consistently use that. You saw there again, the X square, X square, X square. It literally is so helpful for so many of these bosses. Yes, it chews your own stamina bar up, but if you're confident you can break the boss, there we go right there, you can use it to break the boss fairly easily. And of course there we're able to interrupt there so she didn't go for a second time. If she did though, we had enough to use our spin move again there. Continue to break bosses. You're noticing once again, as I talked about the tips earlier in this video, that I'm continuously going for backstabs and then following up. That's the way I like to play this game. Continue to go for the backstabs, follow up for the extra damage, and put the boss in a bad position and myself in a better position. The end of this boss fight was a little bit choppy. I actually got her in under an hour. She was one of the easier bosses in the game in my opinion, but she was pretty fun to fight and pretty unique in the whole musical way. But the mage bosses so far, I'm actually going to say she's probably the best one because she's pretty much a fair fight and not too difficult. The summoner fight was kind of overkill with all the spawns, and the water boss was pretty cool though. And number 3, learn Reflect. Reflect is going to help you hugely with this fight, Skalpel specifically. We're going to talk about that now. So Skalpel is a really difficult boss fight. In phase 1, he's relatively easy, but there is the thing that you can take advantage of, and that is learning Reflect and making sure you have the entire skill tree for Reflect, which means going all the way to the bottom where you get that extra additional window of time to deflect attacks. And that's going to basically be your parry. On PlayStation, I believe it's triangle and L1. On Xbox, it would be Y and LB, I believe. And that's going to be an awesome skill for this fight ultimately, because it can help you consistently break this boss. It makes life a lot easier. And then after you break him, my other tip for this video is you can then follow up with certain bosses, because their posture meter resets, with a charged hit from the back, and that will literally help you break their stamina bar early again. You're going to see it here again. We go for a charged attack at his back. You can see how much stamina that took off already. So now we're literally like one reflect away. I almost said deflect. One reflect away from being able to break him again, which is absolutely awesome and hugely helpful. It can kind of trivialize the first part of this fight, and if you have any difficulty with any of his other moves, you'd of course use your spin attack if you're using the spear. That wasn't the best series of attacks there. I kind of got a little bit behind, but luckily he didn't go up. And yeah, there's the spinning there. If you find something too difficult, you can always go back to that. It'll block for you. And then reflecting, you're going to have to get the timing right. For me, it's definitely something I'm still learning. But yeah, it absolutely crushes him, though. It's really helpful for this fight specifically. You're not going to get it every time if you're like me, because the timing's a little bit difficult. But if you practice it and you're having difficulty with phase 1, or keeping your HP in phase 1 is the really difficult part, because it's not that hard overall, you're going to want to use that, and you'll probably end up saving a lot of health. The other cool thing about Reflect is Reflect will allow you to take a reduced amount of damage even when you miss it. So you'll take less damage as long as you're consistently using it and trying. The game kind of rewards you for trying to basically parry by giving you less damage, receiving less damage as you're attempting to parry. I think that's really helpful too, because it kind of rewards you for learning a harder playstyle. It is really difficult to get the timing down. It's taken me a minute for sure. I'm still learning it, but it is very helpful for this fight specifically. And it's going to be one of those situations where if you're able to reflect, and maybe you have more skill than I do, you'll probably trivialize the entire fight, first half of this fight at least, because you're going to get that hit to the back, take half his stamina bar, or nearly half, and then you can follow up just one more reflect, and then he's going to pretty much break himself. He'll be in a critical state most of phase 1. And keep in mind, I'm not the best at these games, hence my name, Average Gamer. I'm pretty just okay when it comes to games like this. I tend to, go with a little bit of luck and some skill. So I'm pretty average when it comes to these games. If you have more skill than I do, you can probably end up no-hitting the phase 1 of this fight if you get good at the whole reflecting thing. I'm just going to start saying parrying, because that's exactly what it is. Because I keep wanting to say deflect instead of reflect, because it sounds like deflect should be a better word for it. But anyway, yeah, parrying basically, let's just say parry. Parrying is going to help you a ton with phase 1 of this fight. Now we're going to go into phase 2, and I'm going to give you some random tips about phase 2 if you're struggling with the Skalpel boss fight. After I learned to run in phase 2, it only took me 5 tries, and that's because I believe running is probably the best method for beating phase 2 of this boss fight. I love the fake mission complete. It's fantastic. Yeah, I really thought I had this boss. I actually recorded my clip the first time I got to phase 2. I was like, oh, I beat him. Oh, no, you didn't beat him. He's got a phase 2, and it is brutal. All right, so I want to mention this as my last tip on here. I thought the last one was the last tip. I was kind of just talking over this, and I've been really enjoying this game. I like talking about this game. But anyway, our last tip on here, when you use your forum, you lose the bad status effects, but you also lose your good status effects. So if you're using something like a Vitality Spear, you will lose that buff when you switch back to your regular character. So keep that in mind. Everything disappears again, so make sure that if you have to, use another Vitality Spear. These are crucial in this fight because it's going to help you regen stamina, and you're going to need a lot of stamina to run away from this boss. He's incredibly difficult to face one-on-one. If you do have the skill for it, then go for it. If you think you can completely block him and whatnot. But even with perfect guards, he still builds up Plague on you. That's not a status effect you want to be running around with, especially with lower HP. So you're going to just keep running from this boss as much as you can, dodging his attacks. And in some instances, if you bait him, he'll do even simpler attacks if you get close to him. The only thing you have to watch out for, though, is if you do bait him, most of the time you'll get lucky, but every once in a while he'll start his 8 combo, which is insane, and you're going to want to get away from that because it does a ton of damage, lots of Plague buildup, and of course he's got, like, I don't know, 3 coffin slams and some range stuff that goes through that. It's very difficult to dodge through. Typically, you may struggle with this boss fight. It is long. It's definitely one of the longer boss fights in the game because most of phase 2 is just waiting for his HP bar, which is ticking down, to completely disappear. Aside from that, I am baiting him here by staying close to him, followed up with an attack there. It didn't really matter. It's not going to do much. I'm not even sure he's breakable in this phase. His posture bar doesn't seem to move. Yeah, he's just kind of frustrating. I don't know what they were thinking or whether they thought that running from a boss was fun. I mean, it's different, I guess. It's unique. There's not a lot of boss fights in Souls games where the whole thing is pretty much just running from phase 2. But it's not cool to really not fight either. And I think most people are probably not going to fight him in this phase. You're going to end up running from this boss because you just don't want to deal with all the plague buildup. With that said, I would say that this fight I enjoyed way more than the Summoner boss fight. I didn't like that one at all, really. I don't like mob spam bosses. For this boss fight, I could say I honestly did like it. But I don't know when I go to New Game Plus how excited I'll be to run from this boss again. But yeah, keep running. Keep an eye on all of his attacks. Every once in a while, he'll do some ranged attacks like he does here. I tend to get hit by that first one. It doesn't do a lot of damage, though. You're going to want to dodge the follow-ups. That's the more important thing because that'll give you the bigger plague build up there. And when he does this, it's just step, dodge. And then when he steps, dodge again. And then wait for him. And at this point, I kind of knew I had him. I wasn't too worried here. I figured he was just going to, drop, and eventually he went down at the end there, and that's the end of that fight. Thanks for watching this one. Thanks for tuning into my top 9 advanced tips for the first Berserker Khazan. I will leave my original tip video from like a week ago, as well as the other video I did for the spear, which has 3 boss guides in it. Be sure to check that out too. Be sure to sub also if you're really enjoying the first Berserker Khazan and you're enjoying my content. Definitely hit the sub button and make sure you have the bell notification on. I will catch you guys in the next video. Can't wait.